All right. Good morning, everyone. Healthy for the Holidays, day 17, I think. We are on the week on radical responsibility and the different ways we can take radical responsibility for the situations in our lives. I introduced the concept of radical responsibility yesterday, and I had one of you reach out to me to ask me to go a little bit deeper into this idea that when I say radical responsibility, I'm not assigning blame or fault. And that there is a difference between that sort of blame or fault, or who's to blame, who caused that, right? Versus taking responsibility over how to move forward. So I'm going to go a little bit into that today. And as a reminder, yesterday's topic was all about becoming the habit of keeping the commitments to yourself. That's part of radical responsibility, is acting consistently in integrity. In other words, doing the things that you say you are going to do. And people take that for granted, that, well, of course, I'm going to do the things I say I'm going to do. But in reality, if you really stop and look at it, you probably do that in many areas of your life, especially if it pertains to other people or children or work or a spouse or a partner. But when it comes to keeping the commitments you make to yourself, because we're in a group that's talking about food, weight, and body image, these are things like going to the gym or eating in a nourishing way or stopping when I'm full or not over consuming or whatever. Are you someone who is committed to the actions and behaviors that you said you were going to do in order to get you to where you want to go, right? And when people really stop and look at that, oftentimes, especially with my clients, they'll say, oh yeah, I am not someone who keeps my word to myself when I make a commitment about XYZ goals. And that is a practice. It's like a muscle that we need to flex, putting ourselves first and also being the person who is committed to doing what we said we were going to do. Okay, so that was yesterday's video. Go back and watch that if you want to hear more about that. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about radical responsibility and why it's not blame. So many people go through their lives reacting to the situations and the circumstances in front of them, and with a mindset of, I don't have control, or I should say agency, over what happens in my life, and I am reacting to the things that are put in my path, right? I'm reacting to situations, I'm reacting to relationships with people, I'm reacting to the circumstances that happen. I am always reacting. And when we are in the mindset of always reacting, we feel very out of control, right? Because our peace of mind, our well-being, our happiness relies solely on the circumstances, the people around us, and how we react to them. So when we talk about this concept of radical responsibility, it is the idea that we actually have more agency over our lives than we give ourselves credit for. And if we decide that we are going to take responsibility for everything in our lives, all of the good and all of the bad, all of the challenging and all of the beautiful, all of the sudden it puts us in the driver's seat. It gives us agency for how our lives unfold. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not an exact one-to-one. If I decide I'm in control of my life, now everything, is exactly as I say it's going to be. The other piece of radical responsibility is also being able to surrender and let go and recognize that if I decide to take radical responsibility for my life, couple that with faith that my life will work out in a way that is beneficial to me. If I give credence and the same emotional attachment to both of those ideas at the same time, I'm going to take radical responsibility for my life and have faith. Both have the same amount of weight, no pun intended, radical responsibility and faith that everything is going to work out okay. When we take on that stance, what it actually ends up doing for us is making us feel so much more in control. We have so much more agency over our lives and how they unfold than if we are in the driver, or if we're in the seat of constantly responding to everything around us. So this person asked me to touch on this concept of, am I saying that it's my fault, right? So if I'm taking radical responsibility for everything in my life, then that means the good and the bad. So if I'm having trouble with a relationship in my life, if I'm having trouble with losing weight, if I'm having trouble finding a job, if I'm having trouble with money, if I'm taking radical responsibility for all those things, are those things my fault? And I will say this again, it is not your fault, it is your responsibility, right? And so what that means, it means two things. It means, number one, you have the choice in how you respond to any situation in your life. It may not seem like it at first, because at first we respond with our ingrained nervous system responses. Go back to the nervous system work in days, what is it, 5 through 10. First, when we're not skilled at understanding radical responsibility, we first respond with our ingrained habitual nervous system responses. And it takes some time to become aware of those responses, take responsibility for them, and then start shifting those responses. Okay, so that's one way that we are responsible. It's our responsibility for everything that happens in our lives, is to shift and be responsible for how we respond to any situation. Once we understand how that works, we also have the opportunity to be responsible ahead of the event, right? In other words, are we orchestrating our lives? Are we having the faith? Are we having the responsibility of everything that happens in our lives to orchestrate what we want to happen in our lives? Now, I don't have time in this video to go into the concepts of energy and vibration and epigenetics and quantum physics and all these things. Those are all deeply, deeply explored in the Shift and my other programs. But suffice it to say, when you understand how your vibrational and energetic body works, you start to recognize that you have a lot more agency and control of the things that end up showing up in your life than you thought. If you are constantly responding to your environment or reacting to your environment, you are not in agency or control over what's showing up in your life. If you decide that you have agency and control over what's showing up in your life, and you start to adjust your lens, your energy, your vibration, what you put out, the effort you make, the behaviors you engage in, and you start to organize your life from the lens of, I do have the ability to change. I do have agency over what shows up in my life. I do have the opportunity to invite things in my life with surrender. I have faith, right? If you start to show up with that lens, now you are ahead of the things and you are responding. So you're responsible for both. You're responsible both for what you bring into your life and how you respond to what is currently in your life. When those things start working in tandem, wow, you're pretty unstoppable. Okay. So bringing it back down to earth, that's sort of the philosophy. All right. But bringing it back down to earth. Today, the concept is you are responsible for how you respond to any situation in your life. Now, I'm about to say something that might trigger some of you, and I think that's good because it's an opportunity for you to turn inward and understand what's going on for you. Every single situation in life, every thing that happens, every event, every instance, every topic, every word, everything you hear, everything you read, all of that is neutral. Everything is neutral. We give everything meaning. So another way to say this is nothing has meaning except for the meaning that you give it. I'll say it again. Nothing has meaning except for the meaning you give it. Now, you might be wondering why I'm talking about this on a healthy for the holidays situation when we're talking about food, weight, bodies, and how to be healthy, okay? Sure, I could sit here for the next 5 weeks and tell you what to eat and how to move and make sure you get your steps in and all that kind of stuff. You've heard that stuff everywhere. Everybody's talking about it on the internet right now. What we're not talking about enough, and what I am so passionate about talking about, is why you eat, why you choose the type of foods that you choose, why you can't seem to stop eating even though you said you wanted to, why you sit on the couch even though you said you wanted to move. The underlying psychological, emotional, physiological reasons for why we do something or don't do something. And this is all a piece of it. So just to quickly put it together, in all of the work that I do with people, 98% of that work is some type of nervous system or an emotional reaction as to why they are eating that food. I would say maybe 90%. The other 10% is usually habitual, right? So we've got emotional reaction and habitual reactions. And right now we're talking about the emotional reaction. So these are all of the reasons why we reach for food, right? There is no coincidence that during the holidays, people end up, as we talked about in the very first week, videos 1 through 5, there's no coincidence that people end up gaining some weight over the holidays because they change their behaviors around food. And the reason why we change our behaviors around food has to do with nostalgia, has to do with habits, has to do with stress, has to do with emotions, has to do with a battle around food. Can I have it? Can't I have it? Restrictive behaviors, all kinds of reasons why we choose the food. So bringing it all back. Nothing has meaning except for the meaning that you give it. So let's go into a specific holiday example. Mom comes over, things are a little bit strained with you and mom. She says, "Oh, honey, you look a little tired. Can I help with something?" You hear, mom doesn't accept me for who I am. She thinks that I've gained weight. She's noticed, right? She's all these things. Mom's thinking all these things. This is a family pattern, right? And then you end up with your 3rd glass of eggnog and 3 cookies, and you go, why can't I stick to my diet? Well, these things are connected, okay? So if you are going through the lens of nothing has meaning except for the meaning I give it, here's what I promise you. Mom's comment of, "Oh, honey, you look a little tired. Can I help?" is neutral. It's neutral. We give that comment meaning. Now, you might be right, okay? You might be right. Mom might be saying an underhanded comment about how you look and your weight, and she may be judging. But what I'm telling you is that that comment is neutral, and it's up to you how you want to receive it, how you want to receive it in your body, how you want to receive it in your brain, and then how you want to respond to it, right? So you can receive that comment and take it in. The meaning you give it could be, see, I'm never good enough for her. She's always talking about my weight. She never loves me the way that I am. It's never going to be good enough. That can be the way you receive that. Or you can choose to receive it as, I can see this for what it is. Mom had that relationship with her mother and doesn't feel good in her body. And she's projecting that onto me. I'm going to choose to put that down. I'm not going to pick that baggage up. I'm going to choose to behave in ways that make me feel good about myself. However you want to decide. But you can see the comment, "Oh, honey, you look so tired. How can I help?" is neutral. Your decision is how you let that comment land and how you want to respond to that comment. Okay, now that's true for every single thing in your life. And here's a clue. If you are triggered by something, anything, a comment, something you see on social media, something you read, the car that passed you in the road rage that comes up, if you are triggered by something, it always is an opportunity to look inward and ask, what about that is triggering something in me? What is coming up for me that is contributing to this trigger? And in this case, this comment about mom is, I'm not feeling good enough. Mom never accepts me the way that I am. I want to feel love. I'm not receiving that unconditional love from my mom, and that hurts. Now, when we look at it from that lens and say, that is hard for me, we have the opportunity, radical responsibility, to decide what to do about that. Wow, it's painful to feel like there's conditions on my mother's love for me. But I am an adult now, and I can reparent that child inside of me and say, you know what? I am worthy of love and deserving. I'm worthy and deserving of love and belonging exactly as I am. Even if I'm not getting it from mom at this moment, I can give it to myself. Now, on the flip side, if we hear that comment from mom, "You're looking tired, how can I help?" And we digest the information. Mom doesn't love me. She doesn't love me the way I am. She wants me to be different. Her love is not unconditional. There's all these conditions around her love, and we absorb that. See, I'm not worthy of love and belonging. See, I will never be good enough for my mom. See, she never accepts me the way that I am. See, it's always like this when we're together over the holidays. Can you imagine the different outcomes in your choices for food and drink that day based on how you choose to respond to that situation? See how these all fit together, right? It all stems from radical responsibility. I am in charge of how I respond to every situation in my life. And I can choose to respond from this place of kind of falling down the hole of that doesn't feel good. She thinks this about me. I'm never going to be enough for her. I'm not worthy of love and I'm not worthy and deserving of love and belonging. How do you think that you will choose to respond with food in those moments? If food was always the thing that made you feel comforted when you're having those difficult feelings as a child, how do you think you will respond with food? You are more likely to overeat. You are more likely to eat foods that turn on the dopamine response. You are more likely to have a what the heck response in order to try and make yourself feel better. If you decide in radical responsibility to respond with more loving, caring, and deserved talk inside, I am worthy and deserving of love and belonging. Mom was projecting her emotions onto me. She doesn't feel good about herself. I can give her some love. I can give myself some love. I want to treat myself with love. That's up to me. How do you think that you will behave when it comes to food and drink? Now, don't get me wrong. You still might make some decisions that are the same about food and drink that day, but you will be making them from a more empowered place when you choose radical responsibility and you choose your response. And you choose to slow down and recognize that that hurtful comment was an opportunity for you to look inward and see what was triggering for you. Instead of responding from a place of, I don't have any control over what she says, and I don't have any control over how much that hurts, and I don't have any control over the impact that it has on me. So when I talk about radical responsibility and I say everything is neutral, nothing has meaning except for the meaning you give it. Again, this is not an opportunity for you to place blame or fault. It's an opportunity for you to have more agency and for you to feel more empowered and for you to show up more empowered, feeling more in control of the circumstances of your life. Okay, I hope that was helpful today. So radical responsibility yesterday was, am I a person who keeps my word to myself? Radical responsibility today is nothing has meaning except for the meaning we give it. An opportunity to look inward and look at the meaning that we are giving things. All right, I have a feeling you'll have some more questions about this and we might go into it a little bit more tomorrow, but I will see you here tomorrow for another day of Healthy for the Holidays.